Have you ever been told to just let it go? To stop caring because the outcome seems pointless? That's exactly the toxic little lie a family told Anya, a Ukrainian caregiver, about her elderly patient Henry. Don't bother with Christmas, they said. He won't remember it anyway. I want you to feel the chilling weight of that sentence for a second. It's a declaration that someone's joy is no longer efficient, that their past is irrelevant. But here's the counterintuitively powerful truth that changes everything. Sometimes, the people we're told have nothing left to remember are the ones holding the most important memories of all. Anya ignored that cold advice. She climbed into a dusty attic, and what she found wasn't just old junk. It was a live grenade of a love story from World War II. A stack of unsent letters to a woman named Rose that held a secret so powerful, it would force a family to completely rewrite the story of the man they thought they knew. This isn't just a holiday tearjerker. This is a masterclass in why you should always dig deeper, especially when everyone else tells you to just sweep it away. Because the reward for ignoring that bad advice? You might just resurrect a love that time itself tried to bury. Anya stepped into the old craftsman-style house, her nursing bag in one hand and a hopeful heart in the other. She was there to care for Henry, a World War II vet whose mind was slowly retreating behind the fog of Alzheimer's. His daughter, Sarah, gave her the tour with the efficiency of a real estate agent, not a daughter. "We're prepping the house for market," she said, her voice all business. Then, pointing to boxes of Christmas decorations by the fireplace, she dropped the bombshell. "Don't bother with any of that this year. He won't remember Christmas anyway." Just like that, the most magical time of the year was declared canceled. And let me tell you, friend, that's the first red flag in any human drama, when convenience tries to erase tradition. Now, here's the thing about domestic workers and caregivers like Anya. They operate in the intimate trenches of real life. They see what families, in their busyness or denial, choose to overlook. That order didn't sit right with her spirit. It felt like they weren't just boxing up ornaments. They were boxing up Henry's last connections to joy. So, what do you do when you're given an order that feels soul-crushingly wrong? You don't start a fight. You start a quiet investigation. You look for the back door into someone's humanity. For Anya, that back door was a dusty pull-down ladder leading to the attic. She figured even if Henry couldn't remember, he might still feel the spirit if surrounded by his own things. The attic was a time capsule, a treasure trove for anyone who believes storytelling begins with listening to the whispers of objects. Under a heavy tarp, she didn't find shiny baubles. She found Henry's army footlocker from the 1940s, its olive drab paint chipped and faded. This wasn't about Christmas decorations anymore. This was about archaeology. Anya's hands, used to gentle care, brushed off the dust. The latch was stiff, rusted shut by decades of silence. In that moment, she wasn't just following a hunch. She was answering a call that asked, what memories are we locking away because we assume they no longer matter? With a soft creak, the latch gave way. The interior smelled of aged paper, old wool, and something else, longing. On top of the neatly folded uniform was not a weapon, but a small, rusted metal box, the kind used for ammunition. It felt heavy. Her breath caught. This was the pivotal moment, the kind you find in every great true story. The moment a simple act of defiance, ignoring a practical order, unlocks a vault of hidden history. Anya lifted the lid, her heart pounding a rhythm of anticipation. Instead of cold, dead brass cartridges, her fingers met the delicate crinkle of paper. Dozens of envelopes, tied with a disintegrating red ribbon, addressed in a handsome, looping script to a Miss Rose Thatcher in a village in England. The date on the first one, December 18th, 1944. She carefully lifted the first letter. The salutation made her eyes well up instantly. "My dearest Rose, it's Christmas Eve here, though you'd never know it by the sound of the guns." Anya sat back on her heels in the dusty attic light, the world outside fading away. This was more than a pile of old letters. This was a young soldier's heart, preserved in ink while hell raged around him. A love story, frozen in time, hidden in a box meant for destruction. And the family downstairs had no idea it existed. They saw a confused old man. Anya now held proof that inside him lived a poet, a lover, a hero. The question hanging in the dusty air was no longer about decorating a house. It was, what happened to Rose? And did Henry ever get to tell her how he felt? Back in the soft light of Henry's room, with him dozing in his chair, Anya began to read. Each letter was a masterpiece of emotional storytelling, a portal to a snowy Christmas in the Ardennes forest, 1944. Henry wrote of his fear, his hope, his dreams of a future with Rose, a future that involved a farm, a porch swing, and a lifetime of quiet mornings. He'd carved her a little bird from a piece of firewood. He'd saved his chocolate rations to send to her. But here was the gut-wrenching twist. Not a single letter was stamped or posted. They were all unsent. A whole symphony of love, composed but never performed. Can you imagine the weight of that? This is the raw material of inspirational tales, not the victory, but the aching, beautiful vulnerability of what was almost lost. Now, why would a man keep a lifetime of unsent letters? The life lessons here are profound. Sometimes, the things we don't say, the loves we don't confess, become the ghosts that shape our entire lives. For Henry, Rose wasn't just a lost love. She was the symbol of the life he didn't get to live after the war. Anya realized this wasn't a simple romantic mystery. This was the key to Henry's silent heart. When his Alzheimer's made him call her Rose, on difficult days, it wasn't confusion. It was his deepest truth resurfacing. His family dismissed it as rambling. Anya now understood it as a desperate, final dispatch from his soul. So, what's the practical move here for Anya, or for any of us when we discover a hidden pain? You don't just cry and put it back. You become a bridge. Anya's first step was gentle validation. That afternoon, when Henry stirred and looked at her with cloudy eyes, she didn't correct him. She held up the little carved wooden bird from the box. "It's beautiful, Henry. Tell me about the day you carved it." His eyes, for a flickering second, sharpened. For Rose, he stammered. So she'd remember the birds back home. Connection made. That's step one. Meet people in their reality. Don't drag them into yours. But Anya knew validation alone wasn't enough. The real-life mission was clear. Find Rose. Or at least, find out what happened to her. This is where most people hit a wall and give up. It's been 80 years. It's impossible. But here's the counterintuitively powerful approach. You don't need to solve the whole puzzle at once. You just need to find the first piece. Anya's first piece was the internet. That night, after her shift, she sat at her kitchen table, the letters spread before her like a detective's board. She Googled Rose Thatcher plus the English village name. Dozens of results, most leading to genealogy sites requiring payment. The wall felt solid. Yet, the working class spirit is built on resourcefulness, not resources. Anya remembered a Facebook group for the children of immigrants from her hometown, a place where people constantly help track down lost relatives. She took a chance. She posted a carefully worded query, focusing on the human drama, helping an elderly veteran find a lost love from World War II. Looking for a Rose Thatcher from village, possibly moved to US or Canada after 1945. She hit post, her hope a fragile flame in the digital wind. It was a 1 in a million shot, but as she stared at the screen, a notification popped up almost immediately. Not from the group, but a private message. From a woman named Claire, living in Toronto. The message read, "My grandmother's name was Rose Thatcher. She was a war bride. She never stopped talking about an American soldier named Henry. She thought he died in the Battle of the Bulge." The message from Claire in Toronto hit Anya like a lightning bolt of pure, undiluted fate. Her hands shook as she typed back, the time difference meaning it was the middle of the night in Canada, but she didn't care. This was no longer just a kind gesture. It was a sacred mission. Claire explained that her grandmother, Rose, had sailed to America in 1946 as a war bride, but not for Henry. Heartbroken and believing him dead, she'd married another GI, a kind man, and built a good life. But she'd kept a small, locked box of her own. "She passed away 5 years ago," Claire wrote. "But I have her box. And there are letters in it, too. From her Henry." The symmetry was breathtaking. 2 boxes of unsent love, separated by an ocean and a lifetime of quiet what-ifs. This is the kind of true story that reminds us the universe has a funny way of tying up its loose ends, if only someone cares enough to pick up the thread. Now, Anya faced her next, more delicate hurdle, Henry's family. Sarah and her brother, Mark, were focused on spreadsheets and staging, not soul healing. Telling them, "Hey, I found your dad's lost World War II love, and I'm in touch with her granddaughter. Could backfire spectacularly. They could fire her, accuse her of overstepping, of stirring up trouble. So, what's the strategy when you have a beautiful truth that the authorities might see as a problem? You lead with empathy, not evidence. You frame it not as your discovery, but as Henry's story finally reaching out. Anya prepared her case not with the letters first, but with a simple observation. Henry has been much calmer lately when we talk about his time in England. I think connecting with that part of his life is comforting him. Here's a practical life lesson in persuasive communication. Always align your mission with the other person's perceived interests. Anya scheduled a meeting with Sarah and Mark. She didn't start with, "I went into the attic." She started with, "I'm so focused on Henry's quality of life and comfort during this transition for you all." She then gently presented one of the milder letters, about Henry dreaming of Christmas in England. "I found this. It seems he was a wonderful writer. I thought you might want to have it, as part of his legacy." She watched their faces. Mark's hardened, annoyed. Sarah's, however, softened just a fraction. A crack in the door. "My dad wrote this?" she whispered, touching the paper. The domestic worker had done it. She turned a potential violation into a gift. But Mark wasn't convinced. "This is a distraction," he said. "We have a timeline. We don't need some romance novel subplot. This is the classic clash between the heart's currency and the world's clock." Anya didn't argue. She simply asked, what if this isn't a subplot, but the main story? What if giving him this connection is the last, greatest gift we can give him? It might even help him find peace, which could make the transition smoother for everyone. She spoke their language, but guided by her heart. Sarah, torn, gave a hesitant go-ahead for Anya to explore it a little, but discreetly. It was permission, albeit fragile. Anya now had a green light, but the clock was ticking louder than ever. That night, a video call was arranged. Claire in Toronto, holding her grandmother Rose's photo album and letters. Anya, in her modest apartment, with Henry's box. They were two strangers, connected by a love story older than they were. Claire held up a photo of a stunning young woman in a WWII uniform. "This is my Rose," she said, smiling. Then, she read from one of Rose's unsent letters. "My dearest Henry, the snow here reminds me of you. I pray you are safe. I fear my words will never reach you." Anya read Henry's response from the same Christmas, 1944. The dialogue, completed 80 years later, was so perfect it felt scripted by destiny. They had their proof. The love was real, mutual, and tragically lost. Now came the monumental decision. Do they tell Henry? Do they risk shocking a frail man with a past so powerful it could either break or heal him? And how on earth do you stage a reunion for a love story whose protagonists are one past and one fading? The evidence was irrefutable, a duet of longing sung from opposite sides of a war. But presenting it to Henry's family felt like defusing a bomb with social dynamics wires. Mark, the pragmatic son, saw only liability. "You want to tell a man with dementia that his greatest love just died a few years ago? That's cruel, not kind," he argued. Sarah was trapped between guilt and fear. Guilt for not knowing this core part of her father. Fear of upsetting the fragile equilibrium. This, my friend, is where most inspirational journeys get snuffed out. Not by evil, but by the comfortable, fear-based logic of let sleeping dogs lie. But here's the truth those dogs are guarding. Unfinished emotional business never really sleeps. It whimpers in the night, in the form of Henry's confusion, his sadness, his distant stares. Anya knew she needed a heavier truth to counter their fear. She went back to the attic, to the footlocker. Beneath the layer of letters, she found what she hadn't noticed before. Henry's military medals, including a Purple Heart and a sealed, yellowed envelope from the Veterans Administration. Inside was a diagnosis from 1952, battle fatigue, what we now call severe PTSD. The letters stopped in early 1945, right after he was wounded. The report described a soldier who became withdrawn, unable to connect, plagued by guilt. The pieces slammed together with heartbreaking clarity. Henry didn't send the letters because he came home broken, believing he no longer deserved the pure love he dreamed of in those foxholes. He sacrificed his future with Rose not to death, but to a silent war inside his own mind. Armed with this painful context, Anya called a family meeting. This time, she didn't lead with romance. She led with trauma. Your father, she said gently to Mark and Sarah, wasn't just a soldier. He was a hero who carried wounds no one could see. He loved Rose so much he let her go, thinking it was for her own good. He's been carrying that sacrifice for 80 years. This isn't about stirring up drama. This is about offering him absolution. She used the word deliberately. It shifted the frame from a romantic subplot to a final act of healing for a warrior. She showed them the VA report. Sarah broke down. Even Mark's defenses wavered. The human drama was no longer a sidebar to their lives. It was the foundational tragedy of their father's life, which had shaped their own childhoods with his quiet distance. So what's the plan? You can't bring Rose back, but you can bring her presence. Anya, with Sarah's now enthusiastic support, proposed a Christmas communion. They would not tell Henry Rose had passed. Instead, they would use the magic of technology and the suspended reality of his Alzheimer's to create a moment of pure, emotional truth. Claire would join via video call on Christmas morning as Rose's granddaughter, who had found Henry's letters and wanted to share Rose's story with him. They would share photos, read the matching letters, and let Henry believe, in that moment, that Rose was alive and well and had received his love after all. It was a benevolent illusion, a gift of a happy ending tailored to the way his mind now worked. This is advanced storytelling, not deception, but therapeutic narrative medicine. The stage was set. Christmas Eve arrived. For the first time in years, the house was decorated, not with new, impersonal stuff, but with the very ornaments Anya had found, each one a memory. Henry sat by the tree, a wool blanket on his lap, looking at the twinkling lights. He was quiet, but his eyes were alert, following the activity. Anya felt a nervous excitement thrumming in the air. They had moved the family computer to the living room, the camera set up. Claire was ready in Toronto, but just as they were about to connect, Mark pulled Anya aside. He had something in his hand. It was a small, velvet ring box. I found this in his dresser drawer, hidden under socks, he said, his voice thick. I never knew what it was. Anya opened it. Inside was a simple, tarnished silver band, engraved on the inside. To Rose, forever. Christmas 1944. Henry had bought the ring. He had planned to propose. The weight of the unsent letters, the diagnosed PTSD, the silent sacrifice, it all crystallized around this tiny circle of metal. The final, aching piece of the puzzle was in her hand as they prepared to give him the peace he'd earned a lifetime ago. Would the ring be the key that unlocked his heart, or a burden too heavy for the moment they had so carefully crafted? Christmas morning dawned crisp and clear, sunlight glinting off a fresh dusting of snow. In the living room, surrounded by his own history in the form of vintage decorations, Henry looked more present than he had in months. The computer screen glowed, a portal to another time. Anya, her heart doing a nervous tap dance, clicked call. Claire's kind face filled the screen, and beside her, a large, framed portrait of the young Rose in her uniform. Hello, Henry, Claire said softly, her voice warm. My name is Claire. My grandmother was Rose Thatcher. Henry's eyes, usually cloudy, fixed on the portrait. He didn't speak. He just stared, as if drinking in a face he'd been thirsting for 8 decades. Anya leaned in, holding up one of his letters. Henry, Claire found Rose's letters to you. She never sent them either. She thought you were lost. Can we read them to you? He gave the faintest nod. Claire began, her voice trembling with emotion. She read Rose's words of love, her worry, her descriptions of an English Christmas, hoping it was gentler than his. Then, Anya read Henry's matching letter from the front. The room was silent except for their voices, weaving together a conversation that had waited a lifetime to happen. Sarah and Mark watched, tears streaming down their faces, finally seeing their father not as a burden, but as the romantic, brave young man he had been. This is the explosive power of true stories. They don't just inform, they transfigure relationships right before your eyes. Then came the moment Anya had planned. Claire said, Henry, my grandmother wanted you to know something. She loved you. Every day of her life, she loved you. And she was so happy to know you came home and built a beautiful family. She was giving him the happy ending, gifting him the peace of knowing his love was reciprocated, without the tragedy of the final separation. Henry's lower lip quivered. His hand reached out, trembling, toward the screen, toward Rose's portrait. "Rose," he whispered, the name a breath held for a century. "My Rose." In that single, crystal-clear utterance, the fog of Alzheimer's parted. He was there completely. The emotional story reached him where modern medicine could not. Now, Anya made a split-second decision. She opened the velvet box and gently placed the tarnished silver ring in Henry's palm. His fingers closed around it, feeling the familiar shape. He looked from the ring to Rose's picture and back again. A memory, sharp and vivid, seemed to flash across his face. "The ring," he murmured. For Christmas. I was gonna ask." He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. The understanding was complete. He hadn't forgotten. He had buried it under layers of trauma and time, but it was all still there, intact. Claire, on screen, gasped. "She had one too," she exclaimed. "A matching band. She wore it on a chain, under her clothes, her whole life. She said it was from her Henry. The symmetry was so perfect it felt divine. 2 rings, 2 boxes of letters, 2 lives lived in parallel love." Henry held the ring tight, his gaze locked on Rose's youthful eyes in the portrait. A profound calm settled over him, a peace that seemed to smooth every wrinkle of worry from his face. He leaned back in his chair, a small, contented smile touching his lips. The mission was accomplished. The love had been delivered, the circle closed. But as the call ended and the screen went dark, a new, quieter magic began to work in the room. The dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Mark, the skeptical son, walked over to his father and, for the first time in years, didn't see a patient. He saw a hero. He put his hand on Henry's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Dad," he said, his voice rough with emotion. The house, once just a property to be sold, was now a sanctuary where a family had just been reborn. But what becomes of a love story once its final chapter is read? Does it end, or does it transform into something new? In the days that followed, a quiet revolution took place in the old house. The "for sale" sign wasn't taken down, but the energy around it changed completely. Sarah and Mark stopped talking about staging and started talking about stories. They asked Anya to help them go through every box in the attic, not to discard, but to document. They discovered Henry's sketches, more carvings, journals from after the war where he'd tried to write poetry. The man they were in a hurry to move into a facility was suddenly the most interesting person in their world. This, my friend, is the most precious life lesson hidden in this immigrant story. The greatest gifts aren't wrapped under the tree. They're wrapped in the patience to truly see another person. Anya, the domestic worker, hadn't just found letters. She'd handed the family the lens to finally see their father. The connection with Claire in Toronto didn't end with the call. It blossomed. Sarah and Claire started speaking weekly, sharing stories, photos, becoming like extended family. They decided to create a shared digital archive of Henry and Rose's letters, a testament to love during wartime. Claire even offered to fly down after the holidays to meet them all. The love story that never got its happily ever after, in the traditional sense, was now creating new bonds, bridging generations and borders. That's the thing about authentic inspirational acts. They create ripple effects you can't possibly predict. One act of defiance against a cold order created a new, warm community. So, what was the ultimate fate of Henry and the house? Mark made a stunning proposal. Instead of selling, they would use part of their inheritance to build a small, attached in-law suite on the ground floor. Henry could stay in the home he loved, surrounded by his memories, with professional care. Sarah, who lived closer, would manage it. The house itself would become the repository of Henry's legacy. They even talked, with a newfound entrepreneurial spark inspired by the working-class hustle they saw in Anya, about turning part of the story into a local historical exhibit or a small podcast. The burden had transformed into a purpose. On New Year's Eve, Henry passed away in his sleep. He went peacefully, with the tarnished silver ring held in his hand and a photo of young Rose and young Henry, now framed together, on his bedside table. There was no struggle, no fear. It was as if his soul, having finally delivered its long-held message and received its reply, was now free to go. His funeral wasn't a somber affair, but a celebration of a love story finally told in full. Claire attended, bringing Rose's ring on its chain. They placed both rings in Henry's hands, finally uniting them. The human drama had reached its poignant, perfect conclusion. Anya stood at the back of the service, not as staff, but as an honored guest, as family. Sarah and Mark had not only paid her a generous bonus, but offered her a permanent role as the curator of their father's legacy and a part-time caregiver if she wanted. She had gone from an employee following orders to the architect of a family's healing. As she looked around at the faces illuminated by this shared storytelling, she realized something profound. We all have the power to be Anya for someone. It doesn't require finding a box of letters. It requires asking the extra question, ignoring the practical order of the day when it conflicts with human dignity, and believing that everyone, no matter how old or confused, has a story that matters. The final chapter of Henry and Rose's story was written not in 1944, but now, through the courage of a caregiver who decided that some memories are too precious to be declared forgettable. And that decision didn't just change a family's Christmas. It changed the entire trajectory of how they would remember their father and ultimately themselves. So let me ask you point blank, who is the Henry in your life? Who have you, maybe without even realizing it, decided won't remember or won't care or won't understand? Is it an aging parent whose stories you've heard 100 times? A quiet coworker you've never really asked about? Or, and this is the tough one, is it a dream inside you that you've archived as impractical, telling yourself you'll never remember how to pursue it anyway? Anya's power wasn't in her medical degree. It was in her refusal to accept a superficial narrative. That's a power switch available to you, right this second. Will you choose the efficient, surface-level path everyone expects? Or will you have the courage to pull down the attic ladder of someone's soul, including your own? I'm provoking you to act, not just feel. This week, make one intentional choice to decorate the attic. Send that message to an old friend you've lost touch with. Ask your elder relative one question about their youth and really listen to the answer. Spend 30 minutes on that hobby you abandoned. Then, come back here and tell me in the comments. What's one letter you're going to deliver that you've been told is pointless? Let's build a community of people who believe no heart is ever too old, too broken, or too forgotten for a miracle. If this true story of a caregiver's defiance moved you, if you believe in the inspirational power of real-life immigrant stories and working-class heroes, then you've found your home. Subscribe to Christmas Untold and hit that bell for all notifications. Because the world is full of addicts hiding magnificent, untold stories. And together, we're going to open every single trunk. Your next dose of hope is just one click away.